So we're going to talk about, it's deliberately provocative, is transactional loyalty dead? It's a common topic that appears on LinkedIn and in podcasts all around, that transactional loyalty is dead. I think that it is deliberately provocative because I think you've said it before, I think Charlie said it before, is it would be a big statement to say, but I think around this audience we've got the alternative view. So before we get into that, you talked about, from the Nectar's perspective, that Nectar is not just a transactional loyalty program. There's discounts now, a big part of what it is, so instant discounts at the till, but also you've got bonusing, and you've actually got, your partners have lots of other elements to the loyalty proposition, which isn't just points as well. So of the balance of from a customer's perspective or from an economic perspective, what is the balance of that, of transactional points to all the other things?
Yeah. You want to start? So I think, speaking from a Nectar perspective, obviously it was built on a transactional points proposition. And as James said in his part of the presentation, we've moved what we're calling like the third phase of coalition now. We've had to evolve. And the other thing I'd say is, points are very flexible, so you can deploy them in lots of ways, not just for rewarding spend, but for lots of other behaviours. So I think we've already started rewarding non-transactional behaviours, one-off behaviours, occasional behaviours, where you're just getting people to kind of complete surveys or watch videos in terms of kind of driving engagement, or it could be for kind of quite operational things like signing up to direct debit as a payment method, or switching to online billing. There are lots of kind of functional and more emotional things which you can reward using points, and we already do. So we've definitely had to extend, and then more recently with some of the other areas. James talked about switching base issuance, which everyone gets regardless of kind of how engaged they are, to a better balance of base and bonus, where the more engaged you are and the more you seek out offers and engage with the app, the more points you can access. I think all of that transition has had to happen. So it's moved us away from being a very, very functional program to being a bit more balanced. And I think that's the thing. I don't think transactional loyalty is dead, but I don't think it's no longer enough on its own. I think you need to have that balance, the non-transactional elements, whether they're connected with points, earning points for doing other things, or whether it is other benefits that you can get, that rounds off those kind of hard transactional edges.
And do you think you've been moved there because of customers, or also because of competition, like the way Lidl have done things and others?
A combination of both, without a doubt. Yeah, you have to.
Lidl have done it because customers wanted it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think their brand is also slightly different too. It's a bit like, we're going to talk to Virgin tomorrow, but Virgin have the license to do things. Do you want to stick your hand up? There's Vicky from Virgin. So Virgin have the license to do things that British Airways can't do, and I think in the same way that Lidl can do things that Sainsbury's perhaps couldn't do as well. So. Well, no, thank you for that. So, and now let me introduce our two other panel guests. So, Penny's brilliant because Penny's actually worked for Nectar and not worked for Nectar. So that's great. And Zofia as well. I'm sorry. Zofia. Yeah.
Quite international name.
No, and from Comark. So, can you give us an introduction to yourselves first and your experience in loyalty, and also particularly any examples that you have that's non-transactional loyalty? Penny.
Yep, sure. Hi, I'm Penny. I've worked in loyalty also for a number of years, which I will not name.
We're allowed to talk about numbers, but...
Not in that context. But I worked in many different programs. Did work with Nectar for quite some time, so very familiar with the Coalition programme. And then after that, a number of different loyalty programs, but actually looking at other ways of rewarding loyalty. I joined Sky a number of years ago, and we created a new loyalty program where the currency was time. So it was in currency. The longer you're with us, the better it gets. So we gave more rewards for staying with Sky. So they're absolutely non-transactional, but a really effective program. And then more recently, I've been with IKEA, and there we created a token-based loyalty program. So we gave a sort of a token of appreciation, which was the famous IKEA Allen key, no cash value at all, but we rewarded for interaction and transaction, but transaction on spend bands. So IKEA being a very democratic brand, we're for the many people with a thin wallet. So we didn't want to make it all about spend, so not like a supermarket loyalty program, but to appreciate spend. So we did spend bands from €0 to €50, 51 to 100, we get more keys. So there was a transactional element, but also for interaction. So for using a kitchen planner or a sofa planner, attending a workshop. And that was actually just the start of the program, where we had lots of ideas around sustainability and other actions customers could take that we as IKEA would like to reward. So, for example, if somebody drove their neighbour or their friend to IKEA to reduce traffic on the road, we'd like to reward with keys for that in the future, and many, many other ways of rewarding.
So the keys you see, I mean, it's transactional loyalty by a different name, but you felt that proposition was more authentic to the brand.
Absolutely.
And again, it was what we said about, yeah.
It wasn't transactional in that the keys had no cash value at all.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
No value, and you could only exchange them. The way it expressed it was for the help you need to bring your dreams at home to life. So there were a number of redemption opportunities, some of them very practical, like free home delivery, help with assembly. Then we actually found that not everyone has a big project on at the moment, so then we took the more practical view where you could exchange your keys for lunch for two or fika for two in store, so you got a more immediate reward if you weren't in the middle of a project. But there's no cash value to those keys, so I think it's a bit of a blend. It's not properly transactional, but there, of course, is still an element of spend more, you will get more.
Yeah, and Sophia?
Yeah, so from my experience, I have more than 10 years experience in loyalty, mainly in cooperation with retailers in Europe, but also North America. So from my experience in the projects that we did at Comar for our customers, I see many different categories of this non-currency rewards. For example, in this personalization, we have, for example, benefits. So that's the very good examples of this non-currency rewards. As we did for Norwegian and Norwegian rewards, yeah, so we have, after 8 flights, we have some extra benefits, yeah, and even more, we have selectable benefits, so we can select one of 4 benefits as a member, yes. So when we achieve this tier, for example, gold tier, etc. Yeah? So the same we did for JetBlue Airlines in the US. So that's the personalization that we, as a member, we can select very tailored benefits in the loyalty program.
The JetBlue case study is amazing. If anyone wants to, I've got some slides that they shared at previous conferences, but if anyone hasn't seen the JetBlue badges proposition...
Yeah, so that's the second non-currency rewards. Yeah, so the virtual badges that we can collect for many different activities related to brand, not only transactional activities. So that's especially important, especially for industries when you have the small amount of transactions, sales transactions. So we can increase the number of interactions with the brand by virtual rewards, so badges. And in JetBlue, we have more than 400 badges available for members for many different categories: travel badges, social badges, loyalty badges, partners badges, etc. So, for example, during the birthday, we have badge. When we invite someone to the loyalty program, we have the badge. When we, for example, when we visit the New York the second time, we have the badge for that. We can share the badge in social media, so that's something that we call engagement loops. So we can get another badge, for example, for sharing, etc. Yes, and that's only virtual rewards. Yes, so that's only the badge.
And a phenomenal. I mean, the size of that program was enormous because it grew because of its interaction with customers. And the uplift in the number of flights sold by JetBlue, which is ultimately why we're all here, right? We're all here to sell more stuff. And actually, that had a phenomenal effect. And I think that model, again, is going to... You were looking for a good example of blockchain. That wasn't an example of blockchain, because you didn't use blockchain technology, but I think it's a perfect example of how NFTs could be used commercially. Okay. Because that's effectively what they were doing. Because people were exchanging them as well, weren't they? They could exchange their badges.
Yeah, they can exchange, they can invite, they can send the badge to another member. Yes, so that was also the type of currency, yeah, in this example.
The other really interesting thing about that case study was that it was from an airline who didn't have a frequent flyer program at the time, and it was implemented by a company who hadn't worked on a frequent flyer program. So it had two, and again, if you're going to move out of and do some innovation in loyalty, it's often best to do it with a brand that doesn't have a loyalty program and with a company who hadn't previously, because you've not got all the baggage that goes along with it. Yeah. It's a fascinating case study. Yeah. And Penny, you've worked on other programs as well. So you want to talk a bit about Sky and how they were using the VIP program, because that was also giving them rewards for the rewards itself was experiences, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Sky, when I joined, there was no loyalty activity at all, and there was a big challenge with customers. They were actually very unhappy with the brand, and I can remember going to research and seeing customers saying, I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship. I really, really want to leave, but I just can't quite go. So really not very happy customers, and we really needed to change that and make customers happier with Sky and want to stay longer. So what we decided to do was to bring together all of the assets that Sky could create or had already and give those back to customers. So we created a base layer of rewards where we could give people cinema tickets for free. So every month we'd have thousands of cinema tickets available across the UK. And then we brought together all of the tickets and the sponsorship opportunities we had through particularly sporting relationships, and where before those tickets had kind of been distributed around Sky, those all went back to customers. And then we created some really amazing money can't buy experiences, so the chance to actually star in Sky TV shows, or the chance to be in the start of season TV football ad. Really amazing experiences that truly money can't buy. You could not buy that choice, that opportunity. And then we asked customers to opt into Sky VIP, so there's a base of over 10 million, but we asked customers to opt in so they knew they were getting something new and different from Sky. And then we found the customers who opted into Sky VIP were happier with Sky and were actually more likely to stay, less likely to churn, and actually slightly more likely to buy something else from Sky, a little bit more of an intention to take another product. So by offering those experiences, we gave them a reason to stay. And also that thing about infrequent interaction, that's one of the challenges, I think, when you don't have a frequency like a supermarket has, you've got that frequent cadence. With Sky, you might not need to interact very often. How do we stay top of mind? And we made a promise that there'd be something new in the app every week. So it was an app-driven loyalty program, also to get customers to self-serve on the app. But there was something new. So every time you went to your Sky app, each week, there'd be something new, and new competitions, and new tickets, another cinema offering, so always something new, and it really gave customers a reason to engage.
The other thing, having worked with Sky once with another person in this room, which we'll talk about in the bar, is I bet they didn't have any money. So was that partly driven, was their choice of doing rewards? So basically what I'm saying was the choice not, they couldn't spend 4% or 3% or whatever percent of their turnover on rewards. Was that a driver there?
It just wouldn't make sense on a subscription model.
Because you're tied in anyway.
Yeah, it's not really about that. It's about making you happy. It's about actually sort of keeping you passive, not making you want to churn. And one of the other challenges Sky had is they'd really trained people to negotiate, to haggle every year. They brought people in on a very low price point when the actual price point should be more than double. So people then didn't perceive the value or appreciate that the service kind of should cost so much. So customers, more than half the base were phoning in every year at one point. So customers were trained to haggle and to not value Sky. So to flip that, so customers are feeling valued and are in a way passive. They're just not going to call you. They're going to carry on. That was the objective.
I mean, I think that was kind of a genius thing to do, actually, because you were recognising the tenure that they'd had.
Yeah.
And a lot of the rewards cost you virtually nothing. It's like letting people view a new series, a week early or something. So there's no particular cost in there for you, but it was really valued by the people who accessed it.
About creating positive sentiment, right? So when it comes to renewal, you remember the benefit you got.
Absolutely, and people
when you don't have the frequency, that's probably more important than points.
And there's the tenure thing as well. People really valued. We put them into the different tiers. So Diamond was our top tier. People loved being Diamond, even though they couldn't always say why. Just be, I'm Diamond, and what does that mean? I don't know, but I'm Diamond, and this is great. And then there's that real thing, that loss aversion. You don't want to lose being Diamond. So if you're thinking, oh, it's a bit expensive, I don't know if I want to carry on, but I'm Diamond, I do want to stay. Yeah. And we know that works in psychology.
I mean, if you're a business that's got an asset which you can deploy in a way that kind of prioritises people, so it doesn't cost you anything. So I'm using the example of O2 priority tickets. They've got a subset of their customer base loves going to live events. I'm one of them. And they just let them have 48 hours early access to the tickets. It doesn't cost them anything, and they don't guarantee you're going to get a ticket. You get no discount on the ticket. You just get a chance to get a ticket, and that is incredibly compelling. So, although I'm a big advocate of transactional loyalty for something like O2, that kind of emotional engagement, that kind of experiential thing is probably much more positive.
In itself,
I agree, but sorry, go on.
So in itself, just trying to get one of those tickets is an element of gamification, right? It creates excitement and engagement.
But then I think what we're also saying is that, and you said it, I really admired your honesty within your presentation as well, because there has been a long history about coalition programs, and there have been people coming and going. But equally, some of the losses within, I mean, we met at EDF Energy, which now no longer is a partner, and you don't currently have a utility partner because, as you said, in utilities, you sign a contract and you stay with that company for a while, and it perhaps doesn't fit the coalition model. So
are there regulatory issues are probably
there were regulatory
the primary
issues as well.
cause of that, yeah.
Yeah, which we can talk about at great length. But, you know, are there certain, over that time, are there certain categories which you'd accept are probably best sat on the side of experiences rather than rewards?
It's an interesting question, right? Because if you've got a brand that has a subscription model where you renew on an annual basis, then perks make sense, right? Because when it comes to renewal, you'll remember the benefits and the kind of the sentiment you have towards that brand, and you may renew. But at the same time, I think this is where coalitions can kind of come in, because you may not have the frequency, but other partners within the coalition do have frequency. So therefore, the points can kind of start to resonate. It's not right for everybody, absolutely not. But I think it's where partnerships probably make the most sense. If you
I totally get that. I think there's probably three categories. There's probably core coalition. You know, it's absolutely petrol. I think it's always been a best as a coalition program. But then there's others that it makes perfect sense to partner with others, because I always think it's the toaster test. There was a time when I worked with Nectar where you were the biggest buyer of toasters and the biggest buyer of kettles in the UK. And it's because people, when their toaster or their kettle broke, they had enough Nectar points to get one. But then the toaster test for me is, if you can't collect enough points to get a toaster, then what's the point?
And this is where, you know, if you join a coalition, you're benefiting from a combined pool. So we're issuing £250 million a year of points. So that, you know, that means people can build their balances elsewhere, and they'll still remember your brand as part of what helped them get to kind of that point of redemption. But like I said, it's not right for everybody, and you need to be aware of that.
And then those other ones are leaning on things like partnerships, as we said, looking to partners to do it, or as you said, you know, Sky had so many benefits that they had an ability to have how many sort of benefits were you giving out a year? Because as a competition winner, you know, were you giving out enough winners to make it a valid part of a proposition?
In reality, if you imagine a kind of pyramid, so at the bottom of the pyramid, we had the things like the cinema tickets, and there were many thousands of cinema tickets every month available across the country. So yes, there was volume there. When you get to the level of competitions, all these amazing experiences, the pyramid is narrowing, and there were fewer of them. But people could enter many times the competitions. One of the things was with the tenure, the longer you were with Sky, the more entries to each competition you had, so more likely to win. And we did try and capture content from the really amazing experiences and share that with other members, so they could see that even if they hadn't won, somebody else was enjoying it, that this was real and it was really happening to different people.
I mean, my dad loves it, and he's not won anything, so, but he does love it. I mean, my favourite example of a experiential or a non-transactional loyalty program is Dishoom's, which is one of Ogilvy's. Ogilvy, there are a few people from Ogilvy here. What they do with Dishoom is they use all the tech to select the customers who can get a keyring. So they basically do the selection, and then they give you, if you're a good enough customer of theirs, they give you a keyring. And if you have this keyring and show the keyring at checkout or when you come to pay your bill, you get to roll a dice, a physical dice. And if you get a 6, then you get your mail for free. and what that is that's basically a 16% discount, which in most retail cases, you can't use it on Fridays or Saturdays. So it's the kind of, they would have normally given a free meal or buy one, get one free or all those things. But actually it's not that, it's 16%.
To a segment of customers.
Into a segment of customers they've selected. And there's that theatre and that entertainment of saying, yeah, I'm going to roll the dice. And because it's in front of everyone, the likelihood of fraud's pretty limited. And if it's a big table, they all go, way, And I love that. That's a really kind of example of using something that is, we're still using science, but it's then the art of engaging customers. I mean, there are other examples that you've got within Comark that use, and I guess the question is how important is entertainment now to engage customers?
Yeah, that's very important, especially when we have this small number of interactions with the brand. So small number of sales transactions, so we can build additional interactions with the brand by gamification, by fun, by badges, leaderboards, quizzes, surveys. So a lot of different interactions between sales transactions. So that's extremely important, especially for B2C loyalty programs. So.
And how about you? Is there any other examples that you've thought of that you've seen in the market that you've thought, wow, that works well?
For non-transactional, I think that's probably the newer area of development, so I'm not sure there's anybody else I can say is amazing yet. But I have to say, in terms of the original question, our point's dead, I think the answer is no, absolutely. And I've seen some nice sort of localised transactional loyalty programs launching. And I know I'm going to say this bakery name wrong because it's Danish. You know, Ola and Steen, the chain that is now in the UK, they've got a lovely, simple transactional loyalty program, just app-based, absolutely points for purchase and redeem for the product. And I just think that's a lovely example of how transactional does still work in the right context. So bakery, unfortunately for me, too much for frequent purchase, but it's something I do regularly. I build up the points and I get value from it. And it's very simple. There's nothing super smart or creative about it, but it works.
In general, that's the key, that should be very simple, yeah? So without advanced logic behind, so that's very strict to the customer, yeah? So
well, that's the other thing I wanted to just to, before we get on to the future, is Gen Z, because people often say that Gen Z customers are not into transactions and that transactional loyalty is dead for Gen Z. I mean, what's your view on that? I mean, are you seeing anything on the demographics of that?
Yeah, it's not true. Essentially, I mean, look, it's clickbait, a lot of this stuff, isn't it? But I think transactional loyalty is certainly more popular, or has been in the past, with older generations. And yes, it might be tougher to attract Gen Z, but you just need the right brands to do it, right? And if you get the right brands, then customers will follow. So I can see why some people may say that's the case, but the data is starting to look positive. And when you look at member pricing, obviously, that's also bringing in a lot of new customers. The vast majority of our customers are Nectar members, so they benefit from it. But we are also seeing new customers come in, and the demographics play to that too.
Yeah, I've seen stats over the years that have said this for years, and it's been like, but the demographic moves in that younger customers are harder to engage and they're less engaged in transactions, but then those customers grow up and become older customers who do. And
I guess Dom talked about rewarding engagement, I think, earlier as well. And they're harder to engage, so reward their engagement, and that's how you kind of get them on board and into the program.
Yeah.
I've had this idea bubbling around in my head, which is, and I've never yet found a way to make it work, so don't take this as any kind of recommendation, but just the concept of reward. You mentioned about rewarding time, and you meant kind of time served, but actually just rewarding the time to somebody. Is there a way to reward the time that somebody invests in your brand? Because it's not just about the transaction. And this is more suitable for some brands than others, but where you want their time and you want them to dwell time on your site, or you want them to, viewing time or whatever it is, engagement with your brand or your product, can you just reward the time that they're spending? Now, that's an interesting concept which may play more into kind of the younger demographic.
We need to talk about that in the bar later. I wasted 2 years of my life on that concept with the CEO. So I had a CEO in an airline that had this concept of saying that we should reward you with your time on a plane with the time in a plane. And so basically they were saying, so if you fly 8 hours in a plane, you would. But then that led to the cost of an airplane ticket. But the problem with air tickets is that we drew a map of where the world appears for air ticket costs, and it doesn't look like the world. Your cost of a flight has no
distance.
Absolutely no correlation between distance and the cost of a flight, which meant that the pricing structure, anyway, if anyone wants to talk about it in the bar, I can talk about it at length, but it's a very long and boring project that never went anywhere.
If you think about some of the sports apps, as a Nike, or is it Addy Club, you get points there for engaging and doing things and running, etc., right? So that's essentially rewarding you for your engagement and your time, right?
And steps.
Yeah, and your steps.
Yeah.
Then you wear down your trainers.
Yeah. So where do you think we're going to be, just to close, where do you think we're going to be in 5 years' time? And we said if we take the concept that transactional loyalty isn't dead, then where will we be?
From a perspective of transactional loyalty, I mean,
from a perspective of rewarding customers in general as a mix.
As I said, I think it's about rounding out that a transactional exchange, value exchange, is very rational. Yeah. And that is no longer enough on its own. I don't think you need to. You don't throw that away. That's still at the core of a lot of business models and commercial models for a loyalty program. But rounding off those hard edges with the softer areas, of which some of which I touched on when I was speaking. I think that helps to drive the engagement, the emotional engagement that sits along that rational decision making. You need both of them together.
And also, I think that depends economically as well, because we'll see some stats from Charlie, and Charlie shared some before, where saving money was top of their thing in the UK thing, and that's up. It was 60%, but that's up 20% from last year.
Right.
So I think again, as you said, as the changing economic, and that I think is where member prices has absolutely resonated. I mean, James, would you agree with what Dom's just said?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add on this side? Where do you think we're going to be in 5 years' time? I mean, with Comac, you're seeing programs developing all the time.
In my opinion, in 5 years, we will have a mix. Yeah, so currency and non-currency rewards. Yeah? Of course, that depends on the industry, yeah? But that will be the combination of those two areas. Because we are as a members, we are collectors. So we like collecting things, stamps, points, some stars, etc. But still, we need to add this emotional engagement, emotional approach to loyalty. Some extra features related to the target group, related to the some business partners, final customers, etc. Yeah? But still, we should add this emotional engagement based also on the AI predictions. Yeah? So next best offers, next best rewards for the customers, some auto segmentation features, customer lifetime value. Yeah? So we think we can take into consideration all information that we have about the customers, and based on that, we can prepare something special, very tailored to this particular person. Yeah? So that should be the mix.
And just to close, Penny, we've known each other a long time, so I can give you a really difficult one. If we had how many CFOs are here? I'm always amazes me that loyalty conferences know CFOs. Is anyone working finance here? Crikey, no one, right? If you had a CFO sitting here and was either on one side or the other, what do you think their view of the future is going to be? Do you think they're looking to invest in, because the argument for investing real money, real cash into loyalty compared to experiences, and of course they cost money, of course they do, but where do you think that debate's going in the next 5 years?
I think it would depend on the company. I think some companies are becoming much more customer-centric, and they really are genuinely focusing on customers' missions and dreams and desires in that particular space. And I think when a company has that passion, they do want to get to understand their customers and help them on the journey. Therefore, the whole loyalty, experiential and transactional, however that comes out, is super important. So I think you would see that getting support at a very senior level. But I don't think that's all businesses. I think, for a more, let's say, very traditional retailer that's absolutely about pile them high, sell them cheap, get them out the door, it will continue to be a struggle.
Well, thank you very much to my panel today. They'll all be in the coffee shop, in the coffee later. So we're going to have a quick break now. Before we go on the break, if I could just show the next slide. The loyalty workshop, the loyalty repair shop is going to be later. That's the QR code to it there. So if you want to raise a question, if you've got a burning thing, the one thing you wanted to get out of the conference that you wanted to ask a question of, go in there, raise your question, or vote for one of the questions that are already there. And thank you very much to the panel. Really enjoyed that. And everyone will be in the coffee shop later. Thank you.